are. You're a great source of inspiration. Courage and confidence are essential for auditors. One message or legacy you want to leave with the young professionals as they listen to us and the leaders, particularly looking into the future with AI potentially coloring their lives and their professions?
Well, it's not an original quote, but I think it's one that I would always share with students. And I'm the overseas dean of Nanjing Audit University in China. I speak at universities around the world, and the quote that I often say is, "Be the change you want to see."
Welcome to Impact Legacy with Rania, the podcast where we explore inspiring stories of leadership and success and uncover the lessons that shape influence, credibility, and lasting impact. I'm Rania. Each episode, I sit down with leaders, visionaries, and change makers, from audit and risk to CEOs, entrepreneurs to senior leaders across the globe, to explore how they built trust, created value, changed perception, and forged a legacy of impact. Before we begin, please hit subscribe or follow and click the bell. If today's conversation resonates, please like, comment, and share it with your network. Your voice matters as we grow this journey together. So let's begin. Hello, everyone. It gives me an immense pleasure to have on my podcast today Richard Chambers, our most loved and famous and admired internal audit leader on this planet. Richard, welcome.
Well, thank you. I don't know about loved, famous, and admired, but I'm glad to be here.
You are. You're a great source of inspiration for all of us. Richard, you're so well known that it feels superfluous to introduce you. Everyone knows how great advocate you are for internal audit globally, that you really made your mark being the IIA global leader, and also you've had a variety of roles as chief audit executive, and that you started really young, and you're celebrating your 50th anniversary in internal audit. So that is amazing.
Yeah, thank you. This is a milestone year, 2025. I started my internal audit career in 1975. Before anybody thinks, oh my gosh, he's so old. I am, but the reality is I started when I was 21 into internal audit. And most people don't start at that young of an age, and they also have the good sense to quit before now. So
I've
just sort of stayed on this journey because I'm enjoying it, and I feel immense pleasure.
That's wonderful. So let's start with the very first question. What drew you to internal audit, and what kept you hooked on for 50 years?
Well, there's two questions there. What drew me to it, and then what's kept me in it. I think like a lot of people, I was kind of an accidental internal auditor. I came out of college. I've told this story. I've written about it in my books. But I came out of college with an accounting degree, and I wanted to go and get my MBA. But I wanted to. My parents said, you know what? We paid for your undergraduate degree. You're going to have to work and earn the money for your MBA. So I knew I was going to have to work. So I was looking, being practical, young internal auditor, soon to be internal auditor. I said, okay, I got to find a place where I can work that's close to the university. And so I found a bank that had an internal audit department across the street from the university. So I could go and be an internal auditor by day and cross the street and be an MBA student at night.
So
that's what drew me to it. Now, what's kept me in it? Well, I think there are just so many things that have kept me in it. But I think above all else, I think it's this sense of contributing, of giving back, of helping organizations. It's really about helping is what's kept me in it.
Absolutely. And I love your passion for internal audit. It comes through in everything that you write and say. I would like to understand and share with our audience, what was like a turning point for you that made, what was that quantum leap moment where you felt that I've made it and I'm really successful at audit?
Well, I came into internal audit quickly spent 1 year at the bank when I was getting my MBA. Then I went into government, to the federal government in the United States, first with the GAO, and then I moved over to the Department of Defense. I was a civilian auditor for the Army. And I was in that role for about 7 or 8 years, and the CAE left. He was getting on in years and wasn't particularly well liked by management. He was very old school, very traditional, and so there was a lot of friction there, and he left. And there were a lot of people in the department who should have gotten the CAE job because I was still the youngest one in the whole department. But lo and behold, the CFO said to the chief executive officer, CEO, that he would recommend me for the job. So out of the clear blue, I get the call one day that the CFO had put me in for it, and the next thing I knew, I was the chief audit executive. So there's no question, as far as my journey, that was the first moment where I said, I could be successful at this.
How did it feel like?
Well, I was very young. I was 34, and now there are a lot of other people, including I think yourself, who've been chief audit executives at that age. But in the culture of the military, that was extraordinary. I remember, I'd go into meetings with these full colonels and to have a very serious discussion with them about some audit topic, and they would look at me and they go like, "How old are you?" And
I relate.
I mean, I would like to have said, well, what difference does it make? But of course, I always tried to be respectful. But
yes.
They soon learned that wisdom doesn't come from age, and neither does courage or integrity. So
Absolutely.
That's what you have to be able to do, no matter what age you take on a chief audit executive job. You better come cloaked in courage.
Absolutely. This is one of the values I constantly talk about in all my work. Courage and confidence are essential for auditors. Now, as you've been a leader, you've been a chief audit executive and a CEO and now global advisor. With that, there's a great rewards, but also there are challenges. What do you think was like a defining moment for you in terms of facing the responsibilities of that success and feeling, gosh, I've got this big responsibility over my shoulders and I need to be leading by example for a lot of people to follow. Can you describe it for us?
Yeah, well, I took on that CAE role, and I did very well. I turned the organization that I took over, I turned us around from being the sort of the laughing stock of the Army's audit community to being arguably the premier audit department. It was about 4 years. It was a lot of improvement we needed to make, but it was a very inspirational journey. And so I attracted the attention of the leaders in the Pentagon, where the Army is headquartered in Washington, D.C. I'm sure our listeners know about the Pentagon. And so the Assistant Secretary of the Army at that time, who was responsible for the internal audit function, the decentralized internal audit function for the Army, he invited me to come to the Pentagon to take over the internal audit function for the Army. And we had, at that time, about 300 offices and 1,400 internal auditors. But we were under tremendous pressure. The Army was getting smaller. This was right after the end of the Cold War. The budgets were being cut for the military. And across the Army, everyone said, well, we don't need as many auditors. Why do we need so many auditors? And they were cutting internal audit departments by 75%. So I came in and I took over. And I was so proud of the new role, but then I suddenly realized how the captain of the Titanic must have felt, right? Because it felt like we'd hit an iceberg and we were taking on water.
Yes.
So that's the moment at which the weight of the responsibilities really came down on me, because I knew that if I didn't do something to be a real leader and help our organization turn things around, we might even cease to exist.
It's fantastic. I laugh because I relate, and I had this image in my mind. There must be like some a personal value, a personal driver in you to make and shape your success? What would you say that was?
Well, I don't know. I guess I would say that it's the desire to please, basically, to help the men and women of our profession do a better job. I was doing that even before I was at the IA. A lot of people think that I became the CEO of the IA and that somehow then I suddenly was inspired to be a thought leader. I started providing training to internal auditors 15 years before I was ever the CEO of the IA. I was out there giving speeches. I had a thought leadership role at PwC, and then I was asked to come to the IA. So I think I was asked to come and be the CEO of the IA, not to become a thought leader, but because I was a thought leader.
Yes.
And I happened to be a thought leader who had spent a little bit of time. At that point, I'd spent 5 years at PwC. You learn a little bit about business acumen. You learn what it might take to run a $70 million, at that time it wasn't so big, but a $70 million a year business with 200,000 members and 110 affiliates. You can't just necessarily walk right in and do that. But if you build a knowledge over time, you can do it.
Building the knowledge over time, that's such an important point, and one we need to be reminding our audit leaders of, that this is a journey. It takes time, and it takes intention, and it takes obviously personal commitment to get there. And
by the way, I think we're woefully underrepresented in the C-suite as far as former internal auditors who go on to become CEOs and CFOs and others. Now, there are a number of outstanding examples out there of men and women who did, but I believe that there's a tremendous underappreciation for how talented and how seasoned and how knowledgeable of the business that internal auditors are, particularly chief audit executives who've been in their roles for a few years. And I think we need to get our share of alums into the C-suite to help run the companies in the world.
Well, this is a great segue for my next question, and I do agree with you. I don't see it enough. There are professionals and future leaders listening to our podcast today. They might be in audit in GRC or outside. Part of my mission and purpose with this podcast is to make sure others also listen to us so that they get to understand the journey of audit. What would be 3 lessons or pieces of advice you would give to those leaders today, upcoming leaders, sharing from your experience lessons that helped you grow and make a positive impact?
Oh gosh, 3 pieces of advice. Well, first of all, I think you have to have a vision for your own career, right? I'd never believe in trying to map it out, but I do believe if you don't have a vision for where you want to go, for what you want to achieve, for the contributions you want to make, you're going to maybe get lost. You're going to wander in the wilderness. You're going to take some unfortunate detours. So number 1 is have a vision. About what you want to achieve and the success you want to be able to incur or to deliver in the course of your career. Number 2 is be true to yourself. Be true to yourself. Don't try and be someone you're not. I often say, write your own story. My career, I did it reverse, right? I started in internal audit, and I didn't go to the Big Four until I was 50 years old, right? Everyone said at the time I came out of college, if you don't go into accounting and get your CPA, and you need to go in, at that time it was the Big 8, if you don't go into the Big 8, you will never amount to anything in this field. Well, I didn't want to. I went into internal audit, and then when I turned 50, I got tapped by PwC to come into the U.S. firm, and I eventually became the national practice leader for the Internal Audit Advisory Services. And then the last thing is, never believe that you've reached the mountaintop. You've always got to think there's more to scale, because the moment we think we've achieved it all, that's when complacency sets in. And that's the biggest existential threat to long-term success, is believing you've made it and then you're successful and then you relax. You don't work as hard.
These are 3 great lessons. So have a clear vision for your life, stay true to who you are, and never settle on a mountaintop.
Yeah.
That's amazing. And a final message from you as we close this and wrap this up. What is your one message or legacy you want to leave with the young professionals as they listen to us and the leaders, particularly looking into the future with AI potentially coloring their lives and their professions?
Well, it's not an original quote, but I think it's one that I would always share with students. And I'm the overseas dean of Nanjing Auto University in China. I speak at universities around the world. And the quote that I often say is, be the change you want to see.
Yes.
Be the change you want to see. So don't come into internal audit and assume that you have to continue to be the kind of internal auditor that maybe we were 50 years ago, or that your CAE was maybe 20 years ago. Come in and work really hard to help the organization transform itself. Because if there isn't transformation in internal audit, I don't have a very optimistic view of the long-term future.
That is fantastic. Richard, thank you for sharing your pearls of wisdom. You've been an inspiration and a fascinating, amazing leader for a lot of people. And it's a pleasure to have you here. Thank you.
Thank you, Rania. And congratulations on your new podcast. I'm really honored to be your first guest.
Fantastic. And I'm honored to have you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for tuning in to Impact Legacy with Rania. If you enjoyed today's conversation, please subscribe or follow so you never miss an episode, and click the bell to be notified of new releases. If this inspired you, please pass it on. Your likes, comments, and shares help us reach more people, because together we can grow this journey of influence, impact, and legacy.